Hello and welcome to CDO Magazine Interview Series. I'm Jason Masker, Field CTO with Stratascale, and we are partnering with CDO Magazine, MIT CDO IQ, and the International Society of Chief Data Officers in a series of interviews. Today I have the pleasure of talking to Egor Sadovnic, Senior Manager of Advisory Services and Data Analytics at Crowe LLP. Egor, good to see you.
Nice to be here.
Can you start out by just giving us a little bit of background? Tell us about your position at Crowe and the core responsibilities of yourself and your team.
Absolutely. So, as you had mentioned, my name is Egor Sadovnic, and I am the Advanced Analytics Leader here at Crowe LLP. I've been here for about 6.5 years, starting obviously as a senior staff role, working through a manager and becoming a senior manager recently. And the best way to describe my team's responsibilities is really kind of the Navy SEALs of data, right? The situations that people can't solve for, or having really kind of hairy data problems. They call us, we show up with our specific tool set, and we just figure out the best value-driven objective for our clients. And oftentimes that includes not just tooling, but also strategy build out and other forms of support that our clients oftentimes don't necessarily have in-house. And so it could be a mixture of services that allow for them to just reach those next layers of maturity that typically they do not have available to them.
Yeah, I like the way that you framed that. It's very inviting, sort of, we will bring it and address it, and have what you need to go from there. Tell us your problems, right? How specific, do you have some specific examples of how you're aligning with the business to drive value?
Yeah, absolutely. So on top of creating absolute infrastructure for organizations that do not have any. So for example, having an enterprise data warehouse, having a semantic layer host that captures business logic and translates business logic right from the conceptual layer down into the technical layer, providing those services and creating those schemas that a variety of people can leverage and use in different departments. We predominantly look at targeting the insights and aligning those with value-driven development. So if I unbuzz that for a second, really what we aim to do is not really just develop for the sake of development. Our clients are multifaceted. They have different types of needs. And oftentimes we notice that whenever we come in with a stock set of expectations of how it's going to go, the curation process is what leads to that value. So really kind of sitting down, really talking through the pain points, right? Setting up products for different work streams that are aligned with business execution, employing agile and scrum methodologies along the way of development seems to really, really resonate with our clients, because really it's the product and the value that ends up as an outcome, not necessarily just a technical foundation in the background.
So how is, what do you think is key to your success in that? You mentioned quite a few things there, right? And that it is a process, it does develop kind of as you go. What are some common observations that you have on what's fundamental and key to that team? How do you make sure you have the right people involved, the right tooling? Any thoughts around that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the high level answer is, of course, we have a very strong blend of passion and deep expertise. Really, our team is structured in a way that mirrors what a typical organization would have as a stock loadout within their organizational ranks, So think about it this way, right? You might have a financial person or you might have a BI person, but oftentimes they're siloed at organizations. We've developed expertise and leadership within our own group that deepens those capabilities for our own delivery instead of necessarily tapping in different types of people or kind of letting areas linger. So we kind of mirror what an objectively fulfilled and filled out team might look like at an organization, and just deepen those areas, and then keep tight operational connections together to make sure that our execution is in sync, right? Because data engineering and advanced analytics, right? The deepening of both can sometimes sequester itself and also become reporting silos or their own silos. So we continuously keep that bridge. And if I may, one more response to that, of course, is everybody's trained. And whenever we hire anybody onto the team, in specifically the ability to take the metaphysical kind of nuanced business requirement that every business has, right? You're going to have this layer of abstraction in the business layer that, oh, this is the operational qualification for our success. that oftentimes is 3 to 4 layers removed from the technical execution. And so what a lot of people are doing and what a lot of clients are doing is they're hiring people from these two disparate extremes. And so our team, our people traverse both worlds. And so we're experts at really taking that abstracted metaphysical layer of a business requirement and turning it into the actual physical schema of the model. We either materialize that or coach and partner with our clients to enable for them to reach that physical layer and blend that metaphysical with that physical layer to kind of align on a solution for them.
Yeah, so you're building those bridges and you're bringing those closer together, which is necessary for the outcome anyway, right? Because ultimately, they operate the systems that are coming into place, and so I imagine you're achieving some of that data competency in the business units themselves as in the course of that process, right?
That's right. That's right. And actually, that's a good point. I just want to reflect on that because yes, when we come in, we look at the work streams. And the business helps us prioritize based on our discovery. So we have like an A&R process where we talk to the different workstream owners, talk to the C-suite, and we kind of understand where the biggest pain points are and what's the top priority for the business. And then we focus our first phase of development on that.
How do you help to sell the importance of that data capability foundation across these organizations that you're coming into and interfacing with? Because sometimes that's a challenge, right? Why can't we have a data department? We can send it's like dropping off your dry cleaning and picking it up, right? that's the interface that sort of we come into them expecting. But to become data driven, there's obviously more involved. We just touched on that. I guess speak to that interface with the C-suite, speak to business managers and leaders. What do they need to see early on? How do we get them there to that understanding?
Great question. Thank you for that. So in terms of involving the critical audience, and I'll just tackle that first because it's kind of a continuation from the previous, really for them, what really matters is the clear-cut value and the timeline. Really, the value is we don't have a centralized data repository, nor do we have a centralized data culture. The moment those are identified, it almost becomes self-evident, right? Because once you start doing these interviews and you really start talking to these C-suites, of course, like you said, you could be in an abstracted layer and be like, well, why is this report taking so long? Well, if you just dig a little bit deeper, what you've actually got is a collection of a dozen, sometimes individuals that over the course of a month spend, half their days literally collapsing this thing inside Excel or Access or even in SQL if they're more robust. But it's kind of this very manual effort to bridge their different systems together. And that actually quantifies as FTEs. So we typically, when we go to sell to the higher tier of the organization that can sometimes be impatient, right? Can sometimes not see the realities of the day-to-day data or the capture or availability and quality. Of course, those are the three objects that you want to pursue. Really kind of understanding and quantifying how many FTEs does it cost to run business critical reports, starting with financial consolidation. Usually the financial aspect of the FP&A group with their month-end closes and the sales and the ledger kind of blending and the adjustments, that area is so rife for both automation and clarification of process because it's so typically encumbered by the month-end process. Being able to kind of quantify, well, hey, if we focus here first during the first phase, we're going to save you 2.5, 3 FTEs per month, right? Because that's really what it equates to, because we typically capture that information during our interviews. How many hours does it take for you per day or at month end? And then we quantify that by the amount of people, and then we then start to extrapolate, well, how many FTEs does it actually take? And on top of that, we layer in deplatforming or reduction in licenses. So oftentimes organizations just see a big IT spend bill, right? Great CIOs, great technology leaders, that's not a problem for them, right? Because they're kind of keeping a beat within their organization. But even then, sometimes you don't have that distinct visibility as leadership to see where all that spend is going. And oftentimes, even the leadership doesn't really quite know that, hey, we paid for 500 licenses of so-and-so platform and 20 are being used. That's a big disparity in terms of the monthly licensing costs that isn't readily available. But once you do put numbers to it, it's like, oh, wow. So if we did A, B, C, and also either reduce licenses or deplatformed from a redundant software, those are the savings. So that's kind of the strategy angle for how we actually position and sell services for that higher tier of business and drive value across kind of like the business development side of things.
Well, thank you, Egor. Great points, and thank you for joining me in your time today.
Yeah, thank you.
Please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews.